Hey everyone, Jennifer Lee Chan here from NBC Sports Bay Area, and it is Friday. And I know I'm sorry I missed an update on Thursday, but kind of a crazy day. I don't even remember what happened. Anyways, it is Friday, and there was news on the earlier this morning that Brian Griese has declined the opportunity to interview for the New York Jets head coaching position. Now, as far as coaching goes, I mean, Brian Griese has a lot of experience on the field as a commentator and then now as Brock Purdy's coach, as a quarterback coach. I don't know how well being a quarterback's coach translates to running an entire team. Now, Brian Griese could be entirely up for it. He could be, that could be something he wants, but obviously he doesn't want it that much because he declined the offer to interview for that job. Now, the Jets job is kind of, it's a tough job. Robert Saleh was very charismatic. He is a good coach. His players love him. I don't know how. I mean, you look at the coaching jobs around the country, and I think the Dallas Cowboys job is a tough one because the ownership, Jerry Jones has his own idea of how he wants to do things, and the head coach doesn't have a whole lot of input other than what happens on the field. And I think the same thing with the Jets. It is, the ownership taking control of what they think needs to be done, and the head coach is kind of there. Like, I don't know how much Robert Saleh was involved in bringing, um, you know, Wilson to be the number two draft pick, have it being used by the Jets that way. How influential he was in having Aaron Rodgers come out. They did a good job drafting some young players on the defensive and offensive side. They've got a really great wide receiver, really great defensive back, but that doesn't make it an entire team. How much does the head coach of the New York Jets have? How much say do they have in what the decisions are made? And this is the unique thing about the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have a shared vision of what the team should look like. You know, Kyle Shanahan believes that they're not a huge blitzing team. They want four guys to get pressure on the quarterback. They blitz some, but they don't. They're not a huge blitzing team. He wants a running back that can be twofold, a running back and a receiver. They've got Debo, who is a receiver and a running back. So all of those elements, have to be in sync. So there are a lot of times where you see a general manager say, I want this guy because of, okay, let's say Trent Baalke. I like guys that have long arms and big hands and they're tall and then they've got, all of these different things. And, if they have an ACL injury, doesn't matter. But maybe that didn't agree with Jim Harbaugh's views, or that's not what Jim Harbaugh wanted in his team. Maybe that's not what Chip Kelly or Jim Tomsula wanted on his roster. So, I mean, maybe they didn't have a whole lot to say, but the fact is that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch being brought in together means a lot. There's some equity there. There is understanding. There is, Kyle Shanahan saying, hey, I like this in my receivers and running backs. Like Ricky Pearsall was brought in because they needed a guy to beat man coverage. They brought in Nick Bosa because they needed a strong pass rusher. I mean, like those aren't obviously that's not rocket science, but when they first came into Santa Clara, they signed Jerick McKinnon as their top free agent because Kyle Shanahan knew that he wanted a running back that could be a really good route runner and how it makes the defense react to them. That's what his scheme is. That's what it relies on. They want offensive linemen who are mobile and maybe not as big as your average offensive lineman, but they need them to be mobile to get out in front, to be able to pass block and run block. And so if you've got a GM who just wants big baddies on the offensive and defensive line just to clog it up, it's not the same vision. So the fact that these two have the same vision and they work with each other, what they think would work, what they think the team needs, it creates a better chemistry and generally more success. Now you've got teams like Bill Belichick who kind of had his hands in everything. So he controlled almost everything. GM wise and on the field. So then there is obviously the one vision. But when you have a GM who's got one vision and a head coach who's got another vision, or a head coach who has a vision or is trying to do whatever he can, and the owner who has complete control is very involved, and wants to do certain things, it makes it really hard on a head coach. So I don't know if the Dallas Cowboys job or the New York Jets job are actually very attractive to candidates because it's so hard to fight against those powers that be. Now, maybe it's a guy who wants experience. He wants to get his name out there. I mean, Robert Saleh, he wanted to be a head coach, so that was his opportunity. And, you know, there are only 32 of those jobs in the world. So, like, that's what I'm saying. Robert Saleh will probably go to a head coaching job if he's offered one of those in advance, whether it's the Cowboys, whether it's the Jags or the Bears, whatever it may be. There are so few of those jobs. I can see him wanting to do that since he's already, fought the fire in New York. So it's just those jobs are tough ones. And, this is why Kyle Shanahan is not going to leave to go to the Chicago Bears. He knows how lucky he is to have a great relationship with a GM and an owner that he talks to every day. Their relationship is good. And the Yorks want to spend money. They want to spend money on, players. They pay up to the salary cap. The salary cap next year goes to 272. I'm betting you that there are going to be teams that only spend $200 million on salary or less. When the Cleveland Browns have been horrific before they paid an inordinate amount of money to the quarterback that has torn his Achilles twice now, they were so far under the cap because they didn't spend money on players. They didn't grow their talent like how the Niners do. You look at guys who have gotten second contract. It's Deebo Samuel. It is Brandon Ayuk. It is George Kittle. It is Fred Warner. It is Nick Bosa. Those are all the guys, and it's going to be Brock Purdy. The fact that they grow their own guys and want to pay them big money, that means it's a different type of ownership than the ones that spend way under the salary cap. And I'm not saying that teams are going to spend $70 million under the salary cap, but there are times where we see teams that spend 40 million under the salary cap, which I guess in perspective, now percentage wise, is probably as much as not spending 70 million in 2025. So the fact that Brian Griese, I digress, but Brian Griese may not have seen that as a attractive opportunity for him. The 49ers could have an opportunity to go deep into the postseason again. Brian Griese knows what he has in Brock Purdy, and to show that he can be successful and help him win a Super Bowl or take the next step after getting a huge contract. I mean, I think that says a lot for a coach. It says more than going to be a head coach somewhere and potentially failing. Or, and it's also probably better quality of life is what I would think. Um, just in other news, George Kittle, one of three finalists for the Salute to Service Award. I know he was a finalist last year. I know he's been nominated 4 times, but I think this is only the second time he's been a finalist. So now it's down to 3 guys. So I'm really hoping George Kittle finally takes this one home because he has been nominated so many times. The 3 guys that are nominated, that are finalists, Aaron Jones, who is Minnesota Vikings. And this is the only thing that's going against George Kittle is that I know it sounds really crazy, but a lot of times this happens. He's not in a playoff team. I'm just going to leave that there. Aaron Jones, Minnesota Vikings running back, he is a finalist along with George Kittle and Morgan Fox, who is a Los Angeles Chargers defensive end. So those 2 teams are in the playoffs. And I've kind of seen it in the past where Walter Payton Man of the Year, if you don't play or if you're not in the playoffs, generally those guys don't win. A lot of times it's the guys who are in the playoffs who win the Walter Payton Man of the Year. So it might go against George Kittle. I really hope it doesn't because George Kittle and his family work so hard working with military veterans, active duty military. They bring veterans or military members to every single game. And George's dad, Bruce, does a lot of the work trying to find guys who are worthy. I mean, all of them are worthy, obviously, but the ones that he wants to bring to the games. They have given over 400 tickets in 6 years. It's crazy. I'm like, they don't have to do that. A lot of players don't do much. They can just do like the team sanctioned stuff. But George Kittle and his family go out of their way to bring servicemen and women to games, to have a meet and greet with him after. And I see all of it because Matt and I are generally waiting to use the room that he uses to greet the military members in attendance. He uses that room to kind of hang out with them, learn about them. And then when George is finally done, Matt and I go in to record the podcast. So we're often hanging out, just waiting. Sometimes we'll hang out and kind of observe what George is doing with the veterans, but a lot of times we're kind of getting ready for the podcast. But George Kittle does some amazing work with the veterans of the United States and all the military branches, every single branch. And so he is absolutely deserving. And he's done this for, 6 of his 7 years in the NFL. So I hope George Kittle is the winner of the NFL Salute to Service award in 2025 for 2024. But we'll see at NFL Honors. I believe it's the night before the Super Bowl in New Orleans. So all right, that's it for me. Happy Friday, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend, and I'll give you more news as soon as I have some. All right, talk to you guys soon.